Which type of spiritual experiences should not be shared? Discussion speech balloon. I have heard it many times that if you share your experiences, it vanishes. Same I see true for habits also. If I boast about something which I have just started, it will be gone in no time. It's like a delicate flower, exposing it too soon might wither its beauty. How do you balance sharing experiences for others' well-being and the need to protect your inner growth?
When we keep spiritual experiences close to use and not share them, they bloom and become more prominent, deepening and expanding. Over time, they integrate into our being. They are no longer an experience but a presence within us. It's like nurturing a seedling into a tree. It takes time and consistent watering. When we share an experience that is not yet rooted within us, the mere explanation of something so ethereal changes the quality and energy of that experience. Words will never do to fully express the experience, and so in that moment the experience alters slightly as we seek to define it. Over time, if we keep it within and nurtured it, there will be a time it can be expressed without altering its state. At this point the experience is now deeply rooted within us. At this point it has merged with our presence and state of being.
Do not share anything that contributes to the ego. Do not share anything that makes you think, look what I did. See how lucky I am. Do not share anything that will negatively impact someone by affecting their ego. This can be very subtle, because what reason do you have besides the ego? This is why we share spiritual experiences. Even if it seems like it is a good reason, like, inspire others, who are we to inspire others? Generally, I recommend sharing spiritual experiences only with your guru, or perhaps one or two other people with whom you can be relatively egoless, like a parent who is accepting.
I skirt this line. I never want it to be about look at me. Rather, I want people to know this is possible. Why do I want them to know? Because I wanted to know. If I say bliss or jhana or something is real, I wanted that validation back in the day, 'cause I never heard it enough and I always considered the possibility it was bullshit. The same with peace and stuff, it's always about giving someone else insight into what is possible. It's important to declare what you have attained because it gives others inspiration that there exists something extraordinary or interesting in this world.
Although you have a great point about the ego, I think that sharing is part of the human processing of any experience. And it doesn't have to be an all-ego thing. I think that the best advice is to be mindful to the reasons you're sharing the experience. We do see a lot of posts here boosting about experiences, but there are also great posts that are coming from genuine curiosity and a seek of knowledge.
Does this apply only to spiritual experiences? I have found that while I have an inert drive to share my experiences with people, that in a way doing so actually diminishes them, spiritual or not. Almost when I share it, I feel less inclined to continue to build upon that experience. The rush of sharing the story to someone is greater than the rush of having the experience itself. For that reason, I have felt more content keeping these things within more than exposing them outward, meditation, daily accomplishments, etc.
I relate to what you're saying very, very much. I've experienced this many times. I talked to many of my friends very excitedly about moving to a different city, and I ended up not doing that and moving somewhere else entirely. I shared some basic details of potentially upcoming work, only to have them not happen later. My learning has been to let my actions, my work speak for myself after they happen, instead of my words doing the talking before anything happens. In the context of spiritual experiences though, I think it's to do with really embodying and becoming the practice before sharing it with anybody else, as someone had commented above.
If you were a Navy SEAL, you wouldn't share it unless it was relevant and helpful. Besides an ego thing, people who crow they worked as CIA as a John Wick are probably full of it. You don't want to be in this group. An acquaintance said to me, people who say they are enlightened aren't. The Dalai Lama says he's a simple monk. Ajahn Chah said, don't be an arahant. Don't be a bodhisattva. Don't be anything at all. If you're anything at all, you'll suffer. A lot of deep spiritual experiences are personal. You share them with people who will understand. You probably don't share a yoga chakra spinning experience in Doksan with chakra questions with a Zen master. What do they know of yoga? If it's an awakening experience, you want to be careful talking about it, and with whom. I'd talk to a trusted, experienced Dharma teacher, tell them what I practiced, what happened, my current appraisal and understanding of it, and practices and thoughts going forward, and ask if they had any suggestions. If you share at a retreat dining table you went up and down the 10 jhanas in a 21-day retreat in Thailand, where you made once returner, it makes me want to laugh. It tells me you're into leveling up and probably have read a Westerner like Daniel Ingram or Kuladesa. And that you went to Thailand. Cool?
I'm curious as to why you mentioned him. I've been meditating for 35 years, with breaks, but have been working my way through the mind illuminated for the last 6 months or so. And it's changing my life, bringing depth and clarity to my practice that I had been seeking for years. Is there some specific disagreement you have with him or his practice?
I'm skeptical of maps, models, and levels for awakening. I believe human potential and the human story doesn't neatly fit into a box. The mind illuminated is levels and a model of a concentration-based practice. This emphasis on concentration isn't actually found in Buddhism. It seems to be an inaccurate translation of samadhi. Check out Bhikkhu Kumara's book, available free online, What You Might Not Know About Jhana and Samadhi, for a well-footnoted book on this. He spends a book just on this. I did find some good stuff in the TMI book, doing a short period of gratitude and metta before a main meditation, for example. I liked the cartoons. There's a couple authors or teachers who some practitioners follow as if their work is the Bible. Daniel Ingram is one, Kuladesa is another. It can be hard to talk to these people. They have their own POV and vocabulary. If they are on a retreat, often they are resistant to following instructions of the retreat teacher. If a Kuladesa reader says he's midway through level 7 while the teacher wants them to focus on in-breaths, out-breaths, the level 7 wants to get to level 8 and teacher assistance to do this. There's not a meeting of minds. This leveling up mentality for spirituality seems to appeal to mostly young Western males. I wonder what happens to the vast majority of proponents who never reach the higher levels. Despite Kuladesa being a level 10, it didn't stop him from being involved in a sexual scandal and getting kicked out from his own organization. I'm happy to hear you got good benefits from the practice. I think Kuladesa's work benefited because, unlike Ingram, he was a meditation teacher and saw practical results.
I think this is the book's great weakness, especially as it was written for a Western audience where the culture is so progress and success-driven. The notion of stages reinforces those cultural artifacts which I think are clearly contrary to a productive practice. I'm not sure I can see any other way he might have organized the material though, so I guess I'm giving him a pass here even though I disagree. It's true that people who build their practice around TMI have their own concepts and vocabulary, or rather Kuladesa's. Smiley face. But I think that's true wherever people are adapting a guide to practice. We need words to describe behaviors, and a guide to practice must necessarily describe behaviors. So I think as long as we treat the teachings in TMI as a step along the way to be abandoned when they have served their purpose, this is of little consequence. Conversely, if TMI is treated as the way, it will ultimately become a limiting factor rather than a vehicle for liberation. For me, it's just what I'm doing now. Despite Kuladesa being a level 10, it didn't stop him from being involved in a sexual scandal and getting kicked out from his own organization. I know for some people this would be a deal breaker, but I'm not looking to him as a spiritual guide, just a teacher. Ultimately, I apply the test of the Buddha and try things to see what works. I'm not wed to any belief system or practice, just pragmatically in search of tools to aid in my evolution. The book's approach appeals to my intellectual side, and so far I'm finding the practice quite useful. We'll see what happens next. Thanks for your detailed response. It gave me some things to think about.
Personally, no experience, even the fact that I am enlightened / can summon bliss at will, none of it vanishes. A true spiritual experience will not be like a delicate flower, but will show how your previous life was like a delicate flower, showing the eternal flower which you truly are beyond the delicate flower. It is the eternal flower thinking it is a delicate flower, thinking and believing his power goes away upon sharing. Then you experience this. It is the most blatant description of thinking, believing into experiencing. The truth is you are the eternal flower that will continue shining and is not so delicate. But the delicate flower doesn't believe that. He believes he is delicate. It is unfortunate, because it is not true and causes much pain for the flower, besides that it's fine. I already experienced what you are talking about. I experienced goosebumps, told my lil bro about it, then stopped it, like having a curse. In a few days' time it went away after not taking it seriously / essentially denying it / believing in my own power. So yeah, just believe in yourself more and relax. Your power is not going anywhere if you share it. That's the whole point of power, it's based on truth. Even if someone disagrees or wrongs you, you already are standing on your own ground, and will not feel destabilized upon someone's objection.
100% I can confirm you can be enlightened and on social media. I don't use any form other than Reddit though, and Reddit isn't as much social media as an pseudo-anonymous fragmented forum. Anytime you think to ask, would an enlightened person do X, the answer is yes. People who are enlightened are all different, there are many layers to the infinite golden road and they all can be handled differently. For example, I openly talk about cities and my various attainments to anyone who cares enough to be interested. I don't do it for any reason other than the pure joy of sharing such awesome and fun experiences. I want everyone to know what we're all capable of, even if it gets me looked at funny sometimes. There are many times when this attitude has brought me strife, but I've grown from all of those experiences. As the original commenter said, real enlightenment isn't fragile.
I was just asking a question, not implying or suggesting anything. Was just curious what others thought. In my personal belief, someone like that would be so far removed from social media anyway in their journey. Just the thought of an enlightened being going through account creation process on social media sites going to spread some good word and getting a normal social media reaction. But life works in mysterious ways and ultimately the answer matters not, but if I saw someone claiming enlightenment on the internet, I would have a hard time believing it. To me, social media is just the epitome of self-seeking ego and mind-identified dysfunction filled with those who have no care or interest in spiritual development or enlightenment. So curious to know what an enlightened being would find useful in these outlets.
Such were documented in William James' The Varieties of Religious Experience in 1902. They point to an important human reality that seems to be within us. I think it's critical that people are informed about the light we carry. I had an extraordinary experience, out of the blue, that I didn't seek and I didn't attain. It was very important to me, the experience of perfection of raw being, and I didn't know where or who to ask about it. These things are not typical, but are normal to human experience. It's easy to imagine self-importance, e.g., I have been chosen to witness God's ultimate truth, but hard to imagine actively boasting to others, as it is so antithetical to the experience. I don't think that's naive, as I don't recall seeing people do that. But anyway, the experience will pass. It will leave a lovely mark, but likely will have little bearing on who you are. I say speak of it in a way that is beneficial, in accordance with what the experience taught you, if you want to.
As a guy, I have been privy to my share of Monday morning scouting reports, and I don't have a lot of respect for people who objectify such very intimate experiences to impress others. It follows, and you should not be surprised, that I feel very much the same way towards people who disclose their spiritual experiences, usually to get some sort of regard from their circle. We Muslims quote the Quran as see, Surah 107. Woe to the worshippers who neglect their prayers. They who seek only to be seen of men, and refusing to provide even neighborly needs. For me, the message here is to give spirituality and your responsibilities to your neighbors their due, and forget about trying to be seen of men and hunger after their regard. If you have found a spiritual path, it is a gift few get. Don't abuse your gift for what it's worth.
I'm really glad you asked this because I've noticed this my whole life and never knew how to put it into words or ask. I probably need to talk less in general, lol. If you ever come to a conclusion, please let me know. My gypsy family have always been able to manifest and materialize things, and one of the first things I noticed as a child was that if I spoke of something I could feel it slip away. I've always wondered what was causing it. I didn't have enough contact with the outside world to ask anyone, or know other people could meditate things towards themselves or away from themselves. Maybe because we show we care. Like we boast something and the emotion of it vibrates the object into a different position. Things you want manifest the quickest if you truly don't care about it.
In my tradition, experiences are of the moment. When meditating, moments of total unity and drop stillness can be attained briefly, where the meditator, mantra, and act of meditation merge into one unity. Sometimes I may start the meditation practice with the memory of a previous experience, but will not hold it or use as a target for the current practice. Sharing IMO opinion is fine, it's not a possession or something saved, it's what happened. I typically share if someone asks what the benefits or experience of meditation are. That being said, words cannot fully describe the experience of full unity and stillness.
Think of it as a channel. When a spiritual experience has to be communicated through you for someone who needs exactly that, you'll find yourself telling them exactly what they need to hear, or communicating it in silence, even by being spiritually present for them that moment. And when there's no need for it, you'll find yourself not sharing it, quite satisfied in your own being, enjoying life in all its glory. Then it is not one against the other. Your spirituality needs no protection, for it is so powerful. When it emerges, it'll overwhelm everything around it. Then everything else is superficial, and your light blinding.